we talk about the impact of homicide, and you can't talk if you're a homicide investigator without getting emotionally involved in the case. And like people say that you shouldn't, and you should keep a distance, but you do get emotionally involved in the case. There was one particularly sad case that you did, Russ, and it resonated with me when you met with the victim's father, where there was an apartment where a person broke in and started sexually assaulting the 4 occupants. Do you want to take the story there?
There were these were 4 Chinese students that had come out, obviously from China, to study in a local college here. I think it was in Redfern, and they lived up on the 6th floor of an apartment block. So 2 of the young kids were home. Her and the boyfriend were at home, and 2 of her friends, as they walked in and buzzed their way into the unit complex, the blokes walked in behind them and walked straight up the hallway and barged his way into the house with a knife, and then attacked all the people and disrobed them all the young kids, and forced them to have sex in front of him and commit sexual acts upon these other friends and the man as well. And he also did some acts upon them as well for the best part of an hour and a half. You imagine the horror that was going through their minds. So this poor young girl who's naked, and as her boyfriend was well, she thought that she could escape the unit. She's up on the 6th floor, so she climbed over the balcony hoping to swing into the balcony below, but she fell to her death and died. Her boyfriend tried his best to escape as well. He fell, but he broke his legs from the ends down. So we get involved in the investigation, and the manhunt began because we interviewed the other 2 young girls, and they went through their horror stories. But they were able to describe certain body parts of this man. He had a very, I won't go into it, but peculiarity about him. So we ended up...
Want to use the microphone?
No. In actual fact, we ran a lineup on those certain body parts. Anyway, and he had a distinctive tattoo on him as well. So one of the young detectives, a bloke called Lindsay Schubert, sat on the computer and just thoroughly worked through tattoos, and all of a sudden identified this tattoo to this man. So then the manhunt was on. So it took us a couple of days. We eventually arrested him, and we charged him with murder. And it was a strange charge to murder when he wasn't in the same room. He didn't throw her over the balcony. It was her reasoning to try and escape what was happening to her. There's a causal connection between trying to escape and a cause to her death. So we ended up convicting him of murder and about 29 other offences of sexual assault. It was horrendous, a horrendous crime. But the point of the story that Gary was saying, that the family come from China, so it's a 1-child family. And the mother and her husband flew out from China. They lived in a province a long way from the airport. So it took them hours to get there by bus and then hop on a plane and fly to Australia. And knowing that their daughter's been killed, and of course they can't speak English. So they arrived in Sydney, and I went out to the airport to meet them. And I'd arranged through Customs, through my brother who's in the audience. My brother worked at Customs for many years, and Cole organised a special interview room for us. And I sat down and met with the mother and the father. And for the best part of 2 hours, I explained to them in broken English an interpretation about what happened to her daughter. And it was really, really emotional. I get cut up thinking about it. But after I'd finished talking, the father stood up, and he's a retired policeman from China. And he stood up and clicked his heels together, and with tears running down his eyes, he saluted me. And as I'm doing now, I started to cry myself. And I've saluted him back. And it really, really cut to me that this, the emotion that came out of this, and this man, here's this man, this tough man, reduced to tears, and 2 of us sitting there crying. Anyway, so I thought I'd do the right thing when they left. So they came back, and we had a funeral service, and they asked me to sit. The Chinese consulate asked me to sit in with the family, and I sat at the funeral session with the mother, and it was a big celebration. There was everyone from the community came, and when the little girl was cremated here, and organised to get her ashes into an urn and able for her to carry them on the seat with her on the way back to China. So I thought I'd do the right thing as far as paying respect to this man. So I got dressed in my uniform this time with all my medals and all the stuff, and I get out to the airport. And it's funny, I hate being late to anywhere, so I got out to the airport very early. And of course, when you're standing in uniform, it attracts everybody. So everybody want to come over and know the flight times. So I position myself near the board. So as they walk over to me, they say, "When's the next flight to Los Angeles?" I said, "You need to go to gate G." I said, "The plane board's in about an hour and a half." Because I'm looking at the board above them. "Oh, thank you, sir, thank you." So I'm getting pictures of me taken to the airport and guide them on the planes. Anyway, so finally we go through security, meet the family, and we escort them right through to the plane. And as they're going up the thing, I stood at the bottom of the gangplank. And as he went to the plane, I've saluted him in my uniform. Very nice.
Yeah. That's the importance of having someone like Russell, someone that actually cares about it, because that makes a difference. How do you help grieving families? But just a small gesture like that can make so much difference.
Well, I did the same with, you remember an accountant called Curtis Chang? You remember Curtis Chang was killed outside our building?
That was at Parramatta Police headquarters.
Yeah.
He was shot leaving our building.
Yeah, and that was a defining moment in my life, because it come home to me that everybody's vulnerable, and for him to be murdered outside my building. And I came back into the scene. At that stage, I was acting as a boss, I think, at the Armed Robbery Squad. So most of my blokes were locked up in the building. They locked the building down. So I got a phone call from them to say, "Come back." So I've come back to look after my team and see how they work. And I end up in the middle of the crime scene, standing above this little 15-year-old kid, the terrorist that shot Curtis, and seeing Curtis's body there as well. And then I was given the task to go and break the news to Curtis's wife, Selena. And she lived in the city. And I drove in with Dave Hudson, our Deputy Commissioner. The two of us went in and broke the news to poor Selena, and she broke down and cried and fell to our feet. And she stood up and she was embarrassed. She said, "I'm so embarrassed." And I said, "Why are you embarrassed?" She said, "How I look, how I've reacted to what you've just told me." Oh boy! And I've just grabbed her and said, "Come here, come here," and hugged her. And I sat in the lounge room for the next 2 days, because at that stage she was by herself. Her son was interstate. Her daughter was at work up in the Blue Mountains. So we'd organised with the Highway Patrol to drive her down, and we organised to get him to flew in. So I stayed at her place that night. She went to sleep, and I'm sitting out in the lounge room, sitting out there, because I knew in the morning I'd have to pick him up from the airport. So I went to the airport, picked him up, and then I've taken the family out to the mortuary and identified the body and went through the procedure with her. And as I said, for 2 days I sat in the lounge room, and all of a sudden I was a gatekeeper, because everybody wanted to know. All the politicians, the Prime Minister wanted to come and say hello, the Leader of the Opposition, the Premier, the Police Minister. So I'd answer the door. "Hello, can I help you?" I said, "No, and it's the Premier." Hello, Mr. Premier. How are you? Nice to meet you. How can I help you?" Because obviously the media was all over Selena. I'm guarding her from the scrutiny. So I've introduced the Premier and the Prime Minister and everybody to Mrs. Chang. That was pretty good.
It's just again, and this is just a snippet of Russell's career. To balance it out, the evil that Russell's seen, and the pain, the suffering, what he's just described. There's been some funny moments in your career too, but Russ.
Yeah, unfortunately, there has been. I was working on a murder of a young girl in the Mount Druitt area. And
this is police talk, and this is, you've got to understand that the funny stories, and we start off like that. Where's the humour? But this is the reason Russell could spend so long in homicide. It's not caring. It's just the way that you got to look at life a little bit different.
Yeah. So once again, we find this poor young girl's body on the side of the road, and been brutally stabbed and discarded on the side of the road. So we work from that day right through the night, and it's the next afternoon we're still awake and we're still working, and I identify an eyewitness. I found a young girl that saw the lady drive off in the car with her boyfriend, who was the killer. So I'm sitting there, and it was Anzac Day of all days, and we're sitting in a typewriter. I'm taking a statement off her, and all of a sudden I fell asleep, and she fell asleep too. And of course I've woken up first. looked around. They wake up as if nothing happened, you know. Here we are falling asleep in this interview, and it happened again. Another murder I worked in out at Mount Druitt, and sad, really, really sad case. A little 9-year-old girl had been raped in her house and murdered. And you've got to understand that a lot of people don't want to interact with the cops, don't want to provide information too. So we set up a mobile caravan out, and under cover of darkness, people would walk in and give you information. And there was one bloke come in, he said, listen, he said, I think it's my kids. They're all bastards. He said, go and get them in and interview them. He said, I reckon they've done it. Okay. So we interviewed the kids, and then we interviewed one of their mates. And I'm sitting at a typewriter with Neville Smith, and I'm typing away, and Neville's asking this guy some questions on a record of interview. And he stood up, he said, I'm about to have a fit. And he had an epileptic fit in front of us. And he's keeled over, and he's hit his head on the table, bang. And he's opened his eye up, and there's blood pouring, and the blood went onto the end of the interview.
Yeah, Russ.
So we've rendered first aid. We've done our best to try and ring the ambulance and put him in the recovery position. And of course, the ambulance walk upstairs, and here I am sitting at the table with my mate, typewriter there with blood all over it. And he's the first thing the ambo said, wouldn't he sign the statement? Mate, true story, mate. I'm telling you, this is how it happened.